So I've been developing this first-person shooter, and recently I've been focused on one thing: gameplay. There's no point of making a game with a story and art and all the other stuff that comes with game development if the gameplay itself isn't good. Now, I'm in grade 12 and it's been an absolute nightmare, but I've still been able to make some pretty cool progress. So with that said, welcome to Devlog 14.
Baby, when we touch, feels like you are meant to take all my love. Something about you, I can't get enough.
Now, let's get right into the focus of this video, which is gameplay. In my experience, gameplay comes down to three things: level design, combat, and enemies. In the last video, the main focus was on the creation of these story missions, where the player will fight bosses and progress the in-game story. Since then, I've made some small improvements, like nice volumetric light and a little bit of additional detail. But the cool thing is that I've now created an entirely new type of level. Welcome to the district missions. To be frank, creating these levels was an absolute nightmare. My first attempts were just terrible.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
All things considered, this was actually expected. You might not believe this, but I've never created an indoor level. All my levels have either been out in the open or full of sunroofs to the point that they may as well not have a ceiling. Making an indoor environment that wasn't flooded with natural light was completely new to me and was a total struggle. Now, I don't want to bore you with the entire process of creating this level, but a great way to take you through its development is to look at parts of the level I'm really happy about. The new God Rays. A couple months ago, I watched a really cool video by Carbon, who's another game developer. At one point in the video, he talked about using 2D planes to replace volumetric lighting. This piqued my interest, and by using a cube and a transparent gradient shader, I was able to create a similar effect. These new God Rays are so much better than the old ones, mainly because they look good from every angle. The old God Rays kind of fell apart when you looked at them from the wrong side. I also gave the God Rays a small particle system, which really brought the whole effect together. Lighting. My previous levels have only relied on a single light source, the sun. This has two problems. The lighting is really monotone and indoor environments are very dark. When it came to this level, I tried to use more localized light source that only light up their nearby environment. After that, I played around with colors and volumetrics, making the level more colorful and contrasty. For example, you see this doorway? It's so boring. So we can add some colorful text and props, as well as a light source to really set the tone. I've never played around with lights and colors like this before, and I really wish I did. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and think this project is interesting, feel free to like and subscribe. Atmosphere. There's not much to talk about here, but I basically played around with the fog, and this was actually surprisingly important. Fog helps create a sense of scale, but too much fog can be overwhelming. Text. In the greater plan of everything, this is a really small detail, but I love these pieces of text which I've put around the level. They're so easy to add and get rid of empty space on walls. Oh yeah, and I guess this is another really small thing, but I've updated the vent particle system so that it's more realistic as opposed to the old blocky one. Now, I'll be honest, this probably wasn't my best judgment or the best use of my time, but I decided to remake the industrial district.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
This is a very important level as it's essentially the in-game shop, and I thought it could do with a visual makeover. The current district looks cool from some spots, but for the most part, it's just really bright and empty. I also hate the layout since it's really weird that the district is so open, but the stores themselves are cramped into a tiny corner. So, after about a day, I transformed the industrial district into the new art style. starting off with the layout, I fixed a lot of the big problems I had with the old level, and the second floor feels a lot more open and breathable. I'll also be adding a second section to the industrial district, but I'll update you guys on that in the future. Now, the 3 individual stores for skins, weapons, and abilities are all still there, but I've now added a little section in the back where you'll be able to find the most overpowered weapons in the game. So, after implementing everything I learned into the industrial district, I'd say the final result is looking pretty good. Now, I'm not sure if my decision-making brain cells are okay, but I decided to do the exact same thing I did with the industrial district to the player's base. Now look, I totally understand that I should be focused on making features instead of remaking the same levels again and again, but I guess I was just a little burnt out by this point and wanted to do something I knew I was going to enjoy. Anyways, I spent about a day updating the player's ship into the new art style. I think the changes really shined here, with the contrasting colors and god rays really adding a nice touch to the ship. I've been doing a lot of level design recently, and the changes are really evident, especially in how clean the ship is. The old one had cubes jutting through each other and just really bad geometry. And now everything is a lot cleaner. I've also given the individual rooms in the player's ship a lot more love, as they were previously very empty and undecorated. There's the cockpit, the armory, an abilities room, the med bay, the quarters, the storage, and the boarding pod. Now, don't get me wrong, these levels are not complete. The industrial district and the player's base are missing most of their interactions, and some of the areas still need some work. But I'm consciously delaying these things until basic features and combat are fully implemented. So that was all for level design. The next thing I worked on was player-side combat, and this has been and will be my biggest focus for the next few months. Player-side combat basically involves any weapons, abilities, movement mechanics, and systems that influence how the player plays the game. So let's start with weapons. The guns in the game are anything but futuristic. There's nothing sci-fi about them, and although they're great as weapons, they don't fit the style of the game. Now, that's not even the biggest problem. At some point in the last few months, I began to think about other sci-fi games. I'm talking about anything from Halo to Doom to Splitgate. And basically what I realized is that these games took advantage of their fictional setting to create really cool weapons and gameplay. Like, look at this weapon in Splitgate that splits into 2 firearms, or this skull crusher weapon from Doom. Now, one more thing I wanted to do was make the weapons beefier. After watching the new Doom trailer, I fell in love with how large and powerful the weapons felt, and did my best to give my weapons a similar feel. So with all of that said, let's quickly run through the current lineup of weapons. There are 2 starter weapons, an AR and a pistol. The rest of the weapons will be unlockable. These include a missile launcher, a mine launcher, a shotgun, an SMG, an AR, a railgun, and finally, a pistol that I'm planning to give some kind of area effect. Now, you should keep in mind that most of the weapons are still missing a lot of their VFX and unique projectiles, but the models and animations are all almost complete. Along with the new weapons, I've also made a ton of fixes, starting with the weapon clipping.
Wait.
Normally, the way this is fixed is by using one camera to render the weapon, and one camera to render the rest of the world. The problem was that I couldn't get this system to work without causing a post-processing and lighting glitch. So I decided to do something I'm actually surprised even worked. I shrunk the weapons, and when I say shrunk, I mean these things are tiny. So small in fact that they can't go into walls because they're technically inside of the player. Surprisingly, this works totally fine, and the weapons look exactly the same as they would at normal size. A while ago, I introduced these animated hit markers, but honestly, they don't work so well with the weapons. They looked especially weird with fast-firing guns and were too large for my liking. This time around, I stuck to static, triangular hit markers. After making the sprite, I added a small animation, and the final product is actually pretty satisfying. Now, even with these weapons, I still want the player to have other methods of attacking. I don't want the game to be as simple as aim, shoot, repeat. Following that logic, I've now implemented a melee attack. It still needs a lot of polish, but the basic implementation is in, and I've got to say, there's just something satisfying about knocking cubes around with a melee attack. A second way to mix up gameplay is movement mechanics. Now, I don't want this game to be a movement shooter with wall running and all of that other stuff, but only being able to walk, run, and crouch felt very restrictive. So, I've added a double jump and a dash. They work hand in hand really well and no longer make traversing levels as boring. Eventually, these mechanics will be linked to a stamina system that will also control abilities, but that's something I haven't developed yet. So, yeah, that's everything I've been able to do. It might not feel like a lot, but this is actually only part 1 of what I'm thinking will be a 3-part series. We're not even close to finishing gameplay, but I've got everything planned out. Now, one more thing before I sign off. At the end of the last video, I said my next goal would be to get a demo out to all of you, but while working on it, I came to the realization that right now wasn't the best time to do that. I'm currently remaking enemies and combat, and so there wasn't much of a point to testing out gameplay that was going to be completely changed. I've now pushed the demo until after part 3 of this series, and I'm really sorry for the wait. But yeah, I guess I better get back to work, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.